1, 2, 3, 4 different ways to fry eggs. We got our French grandma style if you want to gum them down. We got crispy fried eggs in olive oil if you want a little more texture. Eggs fried in heavy cream. And then we got eggs fried in chili oil fat. Hey everyone, it's Kenji. We're going to fry some eggs today. So we're going to fry them using a few different methods. You know, a couple of them classic, a couple of them not so classic. The first one I'm going to do is just a real basic, you know, the way my grandmother fried eggs, and maybe the way your grandmother fried eggs. I don't know. Did you have a grandmother? You probably had a grandmother. I think you all had grandmothers, right? That's one of those relatives you have to have had in order to exist. Although maybe, well, I guess I had a grandmother that passed away before I was born. Not the one who made me the eggs. The way she did it, so this method, I've seen Jacques Pepin do this method also. You know, you take some butter, a good amount of butter, you get it into a pan like this. I almost always use non-stick pans for eggs just because it makes everything much, much easier. Although, you know, if you've got a real well-seasoned carbon steel pan, you can do it in there as well. Non-stick is just kind of the easy way to go, though. So these eggs are going to be soft fried. This is the way my kids like their eggs. So they're going to have like a kind of liquid yolk, fully set whites, a liquid yolk, and not much sort of crispness or color on the whites. Sort of a, you know, what you might find in a in a French restaurant where, I don't know, where having color on your eggs is bad, I guess. All right, so some butter in the pan. You don't have to wait for it to fully melt. In fact, it's better to not wait for it to fully sort of start sizzling because you don't want it to brown at all. Gonna get a couple eggs in there. We're going to wait until the very end to season them with salt and pepper, because what happens is if you put salt in the eggs right when they're frying, especially if you're doing fried eggs like this, sunny side up eggs, where you want that nice sort of sheen on the top, salt can dissolve some of the proteins, and it can also draw some liquid out, so it gives them a kind of spotty appearance. So I put salt on at the very end for this style of eggs. I'm going to get just a little bit of water in here now. And a lid. And the idea here is that the bottoms are going to cook from the pan, they're going to get a little bit firmer, and then the tops are going to set from the steam in the water. By the way, if you don't want, you know, what happens here is you do get that sort of, the white that covers the yolk is going to turn opaque. You'll see it. You see, they turn opaque like that. If you don't like that appearance, you don't have to add the water. You can just do this over much lower heat and let them cook all the way through just in the butter. But I kind of like the way they turn out here. And what you'll also find is that there's almost like an emulsified sauce that comes with these, you know. There we go. That's our sort of classic Jacques Pepin style, grandma style steam fried eggs. Buttery and tender and delicious. Little chives at the end, a little salt at the end. You do a little crack of pepper at the end. I'm going to gross you out. So I'm going to show you the way that I was taught to eat these as a kid, and the way my kids like to eat them, which is that you act like an elephant and you just kind of suck the yolk out. Ready? Was that gross? It tasted good to me. But let me cut into one of the yolks here and show you what we're working with. So really tender whites, right? Very, very tender, in an almost sort of like, you know, in a buttery emulsified sauce here. And then the yolks should be pretty much fully liquid in there. You know, so they kind of add to that sauce. These are eggs for people who have bad teeth who just want to like slurp things down or gum, you know, just kind of gum them down, which is maybe why my grandmother made them. All right, I like them that way. Next, we're going to do a little quick wipe out on this pan. So we're going to go the opposite style now, where rather than try and keep everything sort of tender and white, we're going to go and try and get a little bit of extra color and a little bit of extra texture in there. So we're going to start with a dry pan. This time, instead of butter, you could use clarified butter. You can't use regular butter for this because regular butter will burn at the temperatures that we're talking about here. Instead of butter, I'm going to go with olive oil. Good amount of it, a couple tablespoons in there. You can use another, a neutral oil, something like canola, peanut, whatever you want. You could use a rendered fat, like I've done this with chorizo fat or with pepperoni fat. That works really well. This olive oil, by the way, my buddy Damien Primis, I've known him for years. He has a fancy one, like a fancy olive oil that's real good. And then this is kind of his everyday one that's meant for cooking. That's also real good. Anyway, quick plug for my friend. All right, so when the olive oil, when you start sort of smelling it, that means and it starts to sort of get really loose and shimmery in the pan. It's hot enough. And so what we're going to do, get a couple of eggs into a bowl here. 1, 2, and then we're going to tilt the pan up away from us, so the olive oil kind of pools at the bottom, right? And then we're going to gently pour our eggs in there. We want it to tilt away from us because we don't want olive oil splashing up and burning it. We want it to splash towards the towards Michael on the behind the camera there. And then you can kind of use your spoon to keep them in a nice shape. Although ideally, they're at the bottom of the pan here, so the pan itself is going to keep them in a nice shape. And you just use your spoon to splash that hot oil over them. Get those tops set. Once the edges are set, then we can really start kind of basting them in hot fat like this. And and basting like this, it's like a fun thing that chefy type people like to do. You don't really have to do it. If you just let your eggs sit there, they will cook on their own. And in fact, what you'll end up with is that they'll take a little bit longer because the tops won't cook as fast when you're not basting. But you'll end up with more of a sort of contrast between a real crispy bottom and a real sort of tender top. All right, but those are just about done. Let's get them onto the same plate so we can compare and contrast. Let me also finish this off with a little bit of salt and chives and pepper. All right, so these ones you can see they get these real nice puffy, crispy bottoms here. But the egg yolk should still also be liquid when we cut them open. There you go. And you can hear it when you're cutting into that that puffiness, which is really good for absorbing olive oil flavor and absorbing that egg yolk. If you can get it into your mouth. I don't know. I prefer my eggs this way. Like I like them with more flavor, more texture. All right. Next one we're going to do. So this technique, again, we're going to start with a dry pan. This technique is one that my friends Alex Talbot and Aki Kamazawa at Ideas in Food. If you've been I've been following them since I was a line cook, since I don't know, the year 2000 or so. They've had a blog called Ideas in Food for years and years and years. That is a kind of genius recipe site. But they suggested this technique of cream frying eggs. So you take heavy cream, you break eggs straight into it. My friend Lisa Steele also, she wrote a book called the Everyday Eggs, I think that's what it's called. Is that the name of the book? She wrote a book that also has this method in it, cream fried eggs. So you take your eggs, you put your heavy cream, and you just kind of let them bubble and sit in there. What I'm also going to do, because what often happens is that if you're only frying 2 eggs and it doesn't fill up the pan, this side of the edge of the pan over here ends up with some caramelized cream that is delicious on its own, but it's even more delicious if you fry some sausages in it and make a whole thing out of it, So the idea here is that, heavy cream and butter are basically, the same thing. Both of them are a dairy product that have a combination of water, milk fat, proteins, milk sugars, and then a couple of trace elements and stuff like that. The only difference between them is the ratio. So in butter, you're mostly going to be butter fat. So you're going to be about 81 to 83% butter fat, depending on if you're getting your butter in the U.S. or Europe. Surprisingly, the butter in Europe is fatter than the butter in the U.S. Depending on if you're getting your butter in the U.S. or in Europe, your butter fat is going to range from 80 to 83%. Whereas in cream, it's more like 37%, I think, something like that. Some amount that's lower than in butter. And in cream, you're also going to have a higher percentage of milk solids. What happens though is that as you fry things, whether you're frying in butter or in cream, all of the extra water content is going to eventually evaporate out. And so what you're left with is the butter fat. And in that butter fat, you're going to have your milk solids and your milk sugars that are going to start browning. The main difference between cream and butter is that you have a higher concentration of those milk fats, of those milk solids. The milk solids and milk sugars compared to the butter fat. So when your cream breaks, when all that moisture evaporates, you're left with butter, essentially butter with a real extra high concentration of protein, which means that it tastes almost like brown butter, but extra browned butter, because more of those bits that actually brown are what you find in cream. So cream actually it's a really fun medium to fry things like eggs in, like this. It's also a good medium for frying sausages in. I've tried frying chicken in it. I've frying like searing chicken breasts. I've tried searing steaks in it. I've tried roasting vegetables in it. As long as you sort of let the cream reduce down and break until it just becomes its buttery components, it ends up tasting, well, real delicious. Anything that you would fry in butter fries really well in heavy cream. So what we're looking for here is for the edges to get really nicely caramelized and for the whites to be almost fully set, which we're pretty close to. And at the last moment, we can add some salt again. This is a case where actually, if you want to, you can mix some salt directly into the, if you have the forethought to pour your cream out into a separate container, or pour the cream in here and then season it before you add the eggs. It tastes really nice if you season the cream with a bit of salt before the eggs go in, so that all those sort of crispy edges end up really nice and concentrated and salty. You get like a little salty kick from them. All right. Let's get those extra brown bits out. Lisa Steele's book is called The Fresh Eggs Daily book. It's a really good book, and you should check it out, especially if you like seeing ideas like cream fried eggs. This is the healthiest of breakfasts. All right, so what you can see, let me come to these edges here, is that the cream forms this really nice, you see this sort of deep, dark, caramelized edge, and it has the flavor of I don't know, sort of like the flavor of like the edge of French toast, where you get that kind of caramelized custard flavor. Yeah, this is one of my favorite ways to cook eggs. All right, you can just watch me stand here and eat for a bit before we get on with the next one. All right. Same thing, we're going to start with a dry nonstick pan. This time we're going to cook our eggs in a bit of chili crisp. So I've got Kari, which is a local Seattle brand. I think, and I'm not just saying this because I'm from Seattle, I thought this before I even knew that this brand was from Seattle. This is my favorite brand of chili crisp, despite the fact that it's made in my adopted hometown. It is really, really excellent. It's got a nice sort of chili forward flavor, lots of garlic in there, lots of really crispy garlic bits, plenty of the sort of mala spices, so the numbing end hot spices. So we want to get the oil in there, but not much of the solids, because we don't really want the garlic in particular to continue cooking, but we'll add some of that back at the end. You can of course do this with something like like Laogan Ma or whatever your favorite chili crisp is. I have a recipe for a homemade chili crisp in my book Il Wok. which in English is called the wok. All right, so we got our chili oil going. Same thing as the olive oil. You're going to see that once it hits a certain temperature point, once it gets to probably around 250 degrees or so, it kind of loosens up and it becomes much more liquidy, much less viscous than it was when you first put it in there. And that's an indication that you're ready to fry. And for this one, what I'm going to actually do is grab... I really love the flavor combination of chili crisp and yogurt. If you have something like, like labna, that's also really good. But just a little bit of yogurt on the bottom of a plate, just a little bit of it here. Isn't that pretty? Love the way those look. And as they start to finish up, we'll also hit them with a little salt, little chives, a little pepper. Okay, those are looking pretty good to me. So I'm going to put them into my plate right over the yogurt. And I'll finish off with some of the chunky bits of the chili crisp, so the actual chili and garlic bits. A little bit on the yogurt. Thank you. Thanks, Lena. So we got, well, I guess I should taste that, huh? I went through the trouble of making it. I should taste it. I know what it's going to taste like because I've had it before. All right, so let me get a little bit of the yolk here, a little bit of the egg whites that have been crisped up in the chili oil. Make sure you get a little of the yogurt. Ooh, boy, yeah. For some reason, yeah, that yogurt and chili crisp combo, I like it on eggs. I like it if you have roasted vegetables, like roasted broccoli with yogurt and chili oil is excellent. Raw cucumbers, like a cucumber salad with yogurt and chili oil is really good. If you make meatballs, especially if you make some kind of funky meatballs, like lamb meatballs with dill or cilantro in there, yogurt and chili oil, really good. It's that, yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's just that combo, that tartness with the chili heat and the coolingness of the yogurt really works well for me. All right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different ways to fry eggs. We got our French grandma style if you want to gum them down. We got crispy fried eggs in olive oil if you want a little more texture. We got our eggs fried in heavy cream if you want a little more richness and fat in your life. And then we got eggs fried in chili oil fat along with yogurt and some of those, oh, Chen knows we're done, right? And some of those chili bits if you want some more flavor. All of them are great, I think. I wouldn't turn down any of these eggs. I'm an egg slut. All right, Chen, you want to come over and try some eggs? Oh, look at this. So many op-chens. Which one do you want? I think probably just a plain old bit of I think the heavy cream egg, huh? You ready? Here you go. All right. Guys, gals, non-binary pals, and furry friends, I'll see you next time.